This video is for the Geography Slide 12. On this assignment, we're going to be reading a little bit about history and how history and maps are related. Looking at maps throughout history gives us knowledge about the people who created them and how they viewed their world at the time. Choose one example from the reading and summarize how their maps give us insight to their knowledge and/or beliefs. Summarize in your own words. This should be several sentences, not just copied from the reading. So we're going to read this focus on history reading first. Remember, we're on the lookout for how did people's maps tell us about their perceptions of the world. Focus on history, exploration, and changing perceptions. For centuries, people have used maps to reflect their perceptions of the world around them. For example, early Greeks created maps of the Mediterranean world. They had limited knowledge of what lay beyond that world. Some early European mapmakers even placed sea monsters at the edges of their maps. This reflected their uncertainty about what lay beyond the seas that surrounded their land areas. Early Chinese mapmakers placed China at the center of the world. They believed Chinese culture to be superior to all other cultures. All of these limited perceptions began to change as sailors explored the outside world. The Chinese explorer Cheng He sailed to many places in Southeast Asia and Eastern Africa in the 1400s. He took back to China his impressions of the people and places he encountered. About the same time, European explorers began sailing far from home. Soon, European explorers sailed around Africa to reach Asia. However, some Europeans believed that a shorter route to Asia lay to the west, across the Atlantic Ocean. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed westward from Spain. He and later explorers found two huge continents, the Americas, that lay between Europe and Asia. Knowledge of the Americas changed European perceptions of the size and features of their world. These changing perceptions drew more Europeans to the Americas and elsewhere. They also sparked a race for European colonies around the world. European countries became more powerful. However, local cultures in the Americas, Africa, and Asia were weakened or destroyed. Even parts of China, once seen by Chinese as the center of the world, fell under the influence of Europe. So remember, if we go back to our directions, we are looking for one example from the reading about how historical maps can give us insight to historical people's knowledge and/or beliefs. So if we go back to the reading, we'll remember there were two really big examples that were talked about here. We talked about early Greeks and their maps of the Mediterranean world. There was something unique about their maps that help us to understand how they viewed their world and what they maybe did or didn't know. There's also an example about early China and the location of where they placed things on their maps that tell us a little bit about how they viewed themselves in relation to the rest of the world. You can also look at the example of explorers and Christopher Columbus and how they believed they could or could not sail to other places in the world. Remember, if no one had ever been there, people didn't know that it existed yet. So you can think about that too. When you write, remember to summarize in your own words. That means you first need to explain the example. Then, once you've explained the example in your own words, you need to expand on the example about how that map gives us knowledge. How do we know that belief or that knowledge about that historical group based on that map? Again, this should be several sentences and not just copied from the reading.